Hey, today I'm talking about the Blade Trilogy. First up is Blade. This is a 1998 Marvel vampire film, and the basic premise is Blade is a half-human, half-vampire hybrid. He basically has all of their strengths and none of their weaknesses except for one, but he has a workaround for that one, and he spends his days hunting down the vampires. There's currently one up-and-coming vampire named Deacon Frost who doesn't like the status quo. He wants more power, godlike power in particular, and no one likes that, not even the vampires. But yeah, Blade kills a bunch of vampires. So I have seen this movie before, and I remember loving the opening scene. If you're unfamiliar, it's a rave in which blood rains down from the ceiling. Like, that's just an incredible concept, like 10 out of 10, great idea. But in my mind, my memory of the scene looks way cooler than what the actual scene looks like. The actual scene's fine, but like, it could have been a lot better. Also, while watching that scene, I was like, if you think about this a little more objectively, that's a really messed up scene. There's this man with a lot of guns who goes to a nightclub filled with people that he hates and then shoots everybody. He's also wearing a trench coat, but that's not inherently problematic. So yeah, that's just an interesting messed up thought that I realized. The movie itself is fine. There's some cheesy lines that aren't great. There's some really bad special effects at times. Not all of them are bad. Like, there's this fat vampire that's impressive, but there's a lot of blood stuff. Like, the big final battle has a lot of weird stuff. I did really like Deacon Frost. I think the actor that played him was perfect. He was the right amount of like cocky and arrogant, but could also follow through with his threats and stuff. And he was just like smart and charming, and just like, he was a great villain. If anything, this movie could have used more of him. A big thing that I really didn't like was that they had 4 sound effects for all of the punching and kicking and stuff. And it just, God, it was not good. That was not good. Don't do that. So yeah, it was fine. I was a little bored by it. It just didn't really grab me. I did still like it. Would I recommend it? Maybe. If you've never seen it before and you're interested, yeah, you could. If you have seen it before, you can skip it. Your memory of it's probably better than the actual experience. It's not bad, it's just like, the other ones are better. Next up is Blade 2. This is a 2002 film, and honestly my favorite poster of the trilogy. And the basic premise is Blade is searching for an old friend of his. Also, there is this new type of vampire whom the vampires describe as vampires but on crack, that are just killing vampires. So like, they're a special vampire that kills other vampires. And so the regular vampires have to team up with Blade in order to stop the crackhead vampires. And this movie's pretty great. You got Ron Perlman, who's just a delight. He plays such an asshole, but it really, really works. The action's a lot better. The story's more focused. It feels like they spent more time like polishing it, and it really shows off. As soon as the credits rolled is when I discovered that this movie was directed by Guillermo del Toro, and I'm like, oh my God, that's why it's so much better. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I don't know. And then like, even what they did with the bad guys and how they connected these new guys to the wider mythos was really interesting. I don't know, it worked so much better. Like, the first one was okay. This one was good. So I would totally recommend this movie. It's a legitimately good, fun, interesting time. And I really think the special effects hold up a lot better than the first one for sure, but just in general, I think they're pretty dang good. It's definitely not a perfect movie, but like, it's totally worth the watch. So even if you haven't seen the first one, you don't need to see the first one. You can just dive straight into this one and you'll be completely fine. It's a really solid, fun movie. And lastly is Blade Trinity. This is a 2004 film, and the basic premise is a different group of vampires want even more power. And how do they get more power? By getting rid of some of their weaknesses. But how did they get rid of some of their weaknesses? Well, obviously they have to find the OG vampire Dracula and take some of his DNA and combine it with their DNA, and then everything will be great. So that's what they do. And this movie is awesome. I know the production of this had so many issues. Like there's this thing about how Wesley Snipes just refused to cooperate a lot of the time. It was very hostile and all sorts of issues. But I think despite that, it's great. It's really solid. It's something else. I think a lot of that has to do with the cast because you got Ryan Reynolds who's doing his just fun thing. He does talk about dicks a lot and one or two lines that are kind of misogynistic, but like, it's fairly easy to get past. And then you got Jessica Biel, who is a really interesting character. I liked her having a bow, that was fun too. Also, both of them are very sexy in this, which I appreciated that they did both ways, not just one. And then technically the whole reason I wanted to watch this was because Parker Posey's in this, and she is so freaking good in it. She's so interesting and weird, and really the only fault of the movie in regards to her is to not let her just be more weird and give her more presence. She kind of disappears during the third act because they needed to make room for Dracula, but that was a mistake. She's such an interesting villain. I recently read her memoir, which has a chapter talking about this, and she talked about all these ideas for like costume stuff that she wanted to do, having like monk clothes from like different cultures and all these different like talismans and having like extensions in her hair of different lengths, and it's so interesting. They got nixed because she needed to be a hot, sexy thing. One of the things I thought was interesting in the book was how she said that Wesley had an entourage of like 20 people at all times, and she said with that she would get hit on set in the exact same way in which she would get hit on when she was at a nightclub. She wasn't complaining, she was just kind of saying that as a matter of fact. There was a sex scene between her and Dracula that got cut. She really liked Triple H. She said he was really nice. I'm just skimming it again. I do like too how she quotes the Blade wiki when describing her character. That's just fun. She does talk about an interaction she had with Wesley Snipes where he was just kind of weird, and that's about it. But back to the movie, it's kind of great. I enjoyed this movie a ton and I would totally recommend it. If you're gonna watch just one of these movies, you can totally just do this one. These movies are really standalone. I would still recommend Blade 2 because it's honestly good, but if you're just gonna do just one, do this one. It's great, besides a few flaws that you'll definitely notice, but it's fine. It's fine. You can easily work past them, I promise. So yes, good movie, totally worth a watch. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Blade sitting at number 161 in the liked category. And then after that is Blade 2 sitting at number 111 in the quite liked category. And then lastly is Blade Trinity sitting at number 75 in the really like section. And this is out of a total of 213 old movies so far this year.